Regular viewers will have noticed that my introductory logo has changed. This is only temporary. I wanted to show what can be achieved with one of the handy effects available in Untitled Studio. This effect is called Curl, and in this tutorial I'll attempt to demonstrate how it can be used to create the effect shown in the logo. I'm using Untitled Studio within Continuum 2022. Your UI may be different. I'm using Untitled Studio in plugin mode this time. I've applied this title to a video event on the Vegas Pro timeline. The video is of a slowly spinning globe and has been obtained legally. If you plan to use any video clip from any source, you must ensure that you can legally use it. I have a license to use this particular video clip. To show this video on the title, I must select Video 1 from the Add New Media list. I'll drag this entry to the bottom to reveal the default text. I'll start by changing the text string to something appropriate and adjust the font and size to suit. Don't worry too much about the font size, but it needs to be large as it needs to spread around the circumference of the globe. We may need to adjust it later. I'll set the font size to 84. I'm going to display the grid as this will help me later on. I now need to apply the curl effect. Before I do that though, I'm going to add a 3D container to the track list. Where an entry is to be animated and you don't want the animation to affect other entries, you should contain your animated entry in a 3D container. You do this by selecting the shape track entry and then selecting New 3D Container from the Add New Container option. I now need to tip the 3D container 90 degrees before I apply the curl effect. I can now apply the curl effect to the text entry. The globe will aid me in curling the text into a circle. If you don't have a globe, create a circular spline object as an aid. The curl effect is one of a group of effects called deformers, which is found under the shaders option in the main toolbar. This will add a track entry called Shader Curl under the text entry. A window will open under Controls showing various parameters for the effect. To make it easier for me to create the curl around the globe, I'm going to position the text string so it starts at bottom center. You'll see why shortly. It's a good idea at this point to check that Snap to Grid isn't enabled. Now I can use the curl parameters to create the shape I want. I'm not going to describe each of these parameters. I'm just going to concentrate on the parameters that will produce the result. These are curl 1, curl 2, amount, and axis offset. First, I'll increase the curl 1 amount. It needs to be a negative curl so that the text can be read properly. Make sure that the reverse direction isn't checked. Now you can see that's not right. We're getting some sort of circle, but it's too small and the ends of the text don't match up. I have to use the amount parameter in conjunction with the curl 1 and curl 2 parameters to get the ends to line up. Leave a gap between the start and end of the text. If the size isn't right, the axis offset parameter can be used. You may find that the text doesn't line up accurately with the globe. If this is the case, select the text entry and make final adjustments with the interactor. If you can't see the interactor, scroll the display outwards. If necessary, make final small adjustments to the curl parameters to get the text nicely lined up with the circle. You'll find that it's extremely difficult to get it absolutely correct, but if it's reasonable, any deviations when it's animated will hardly be noticeable. Now for the text animation. I want the text to do one revolution during the title length. So, with the text entry selected, I'll use the spin Y parameter to see how the animation works. As you can see, that's not going to work. This is because the pivot point isn't set right. To correct this, I need to change the position pivot drop-down selection from lock-in position to independent. I want the pivot point to be in the middle of the display, so for a 1920 by 1080 resolution, that means entering 960 in the pivot X parameter and 540 in the pivot Y parameter. Pivot Z needs to be at the Z plane datum, which is 0. I'll use the spin Y parameter again to see if the text rotates correctly. It's not perfect, there's a bit of a wobble, but that won't be noticeable in the final scene. You could tweak the pivot parameter slightly if you felt it was necessary. With the CTI at the start of the timeline, I'll add a keyframe, set the spin Y parameter to 0 and the interpolation mode to linear. At the end of the timeline, the spin Y parameter will be 360 degrees, so that's 1 in the modifier. I'll now play the animation to see what it looks like. Now I can select the 3D container and change the tumble X parameter to a suitable value. I can also disable the grid now. If you had to increase the diameter of the curl using the axis offset parameter, you'll find that the letters have shrunk in height. You can increase the 3D container scale Y parameter to correct this. Remember, you can get finer adjustment by holding the Alt key down as you adjust. Don't adjust the scale X parameter, this will disrupt the pivot point. Now, that's fine as far as it goes. But you can see we have a problem. The text isn't wrapping round the globe. This is because the scene is 2D. To correct this, I need to change the scene to 3D render. Now, if I play the animation, we have another problem. The video is interfering with the letters as they rotate. They're not going behind the globe. To get a better view of what's happening, I'll switch the camera view to World. You can see the problem. The video is two-dimensional and it's sitting at 0 position on the Z plane. It's therefore blanking out the letters as they pass this 0 position. The only way to correct that is to push the video further back in the Z plane or pull the text forward. If you pull the text forward, the pivot point will be disrupted and could be difficult to correct. I'll choose the Format option and push the video back. I can do this by selecting the video entry and using the Z interactor, the blue arrow. You need to switch between the render camera and world views while adjusting to get it to the right position. Now that looks better. There's still a slight wobble, but I don't think it's noticeable. If your video has a background, you'll find that pushing it back in the Z plane will create a blank border around it. If this is undesirable, you can correct this. Select the scene entry and use the master scale parameter to scale the scene up. The text can be enhanced if required by applying one of the extrusion styles. I'll simply make it so that the reverse of the text has a bevel. If desired, you can tip the text slightly by adjusting the 3D container rotate Z parameter. Finally, if you see what I call staircasing on some of the characters after rendering, increase the curl effect resolution value to 1000. You may be wondering why I've gone to all this trouble creating text on a circular path, when there's an effect called path available. The path effect is capable of creating text on a circular path, but as I demonstrated in tutorial 62, it's not possible to tumble letters properly in the X-plane, hence the necessity to use the curl effect. For those of you who aren't familiar with the path effect, I'll be dealing with the subject in a further tutorial. Once again, thanks for watching. If you haven't subscribed yet, please consider doing so. Until the next time, bye for now.